Makes total sense, Tony, what you say about a quarterback looking at his options and understanding the long game and thinking, okay, I can be developed by one of the best for 2 or 3 years, then I can go somewhere else and play for 2 or 3 years. It's a 5-year plan if I get redshirted, and they will. So there you go. Ryan Dawes, thank you so much, sir. We appreciate you so much being here and your contribution. And Tony has already started to explain your question and respond to it by giving that rather bleak rundown of the offensive line prospects. So there you go. Anyone on the board the Buckeyes might be interested in. Maybe that doesn't point us towards specific players, but you addressed the offensive line, Tony. You said near the beginning of the show, or maybe it was before we started, that offensive line or wide receiver was obviously you don't connect Ohio State and need at wide receiver. However, from a depth piece, there may be some reinforcements needed.
Well, I mean, they're down to 7 scholarship guys right now on the offense, or six scholarship receivers. I'm looking at it right now, just trying to do the math in my head. 6 scholarship receivers. They'll add 2 more. Mylan Graham and Demarion Witten will start his career out at wide receiver, and they'll see if he stays there. But they were looking a little bit in the portal at receiver if the right guy was out there. Because you look at what you've got, and I think you've got a bunch of guys that could start and play a lot of places, and they'll play at Ohio State. But you're talking 6 guys right now, 7 guys on scholarship. That is, they used to run 6 guys in a rotation routinely at Ohio State a few years back. And now, like, I don't see that happening. Now we may get there, but they would like to have more options. You lose 3 of your 4 2022 guys, and the 4th is Kojo Antwi, who has maybe, I don't think he has a catch in his career. So you've essentially gone over in that class. You've already lost Noah Rogers from the 2023 class. So that alone, and they wanted to bring in like 4 receivers in the 2024 class and landed 2, and then we'll try Demarion Witten there. So you've got 3 there. So yeah, so they're trying to catch up those numbers that they've missed on and lost. So I don't know what the target number is, but I know the target number on running backs is 5. The target number on receivers is probably close to double that, just based on the fact that you're talking about 3 positions as opposed to 1 running back position.
Well, there's one proven commodity in Ibuka. Then there are about 3 or 4 super, super high ceiling guys. Tate, Ennis, Smith, Graham comes in, like you said, this summer. Who else do we have here?
Well, and you still have Jaden Ballard and Bryson Rogers, redshirt freshman, who has done well each spring at Ohio State. And I think one of the reasons he hit the portal last year is because he said, look how well I've done and I didn't play. So he's a guy that is going to play. He can play in the slot. But again, right now in the slot, you've got Emeka, you've got Brandon Ennis, you've got Bryson Rogers. So Bryson Rogers is probably going to have to play some outside stuff. And the reason Ibuka, I think, is in the slot more is because of Jeremiah Smith doing what he's doing on the outside. And Carnell Tate can play everywhere. Ibuka can play everywhere. So they can move all of these pieces around. But you're talking about a top 4 that Jaden Ballard had a very good last week of spring, but not somebody that they can even really count on yet. So right now you're talking Emeka Ibuka, yes. Carnell Tate, they feel like they can count on him. He prepared like a starter all last year. You're assuming Brandon Ennis will be able to do that. You're assuming Jeremiah Smith from everything that you saw in the spring, and Ennis was injured for half of the spring. So and that was his first spring. So there's questions there. I'm sure they feel really good about their 3, but when one of those is a true freshman, that's not very deep.
Yakov chiming in. Appreciate you being here. If Will Howard, 2nd round pick, Ohio State has won a title.
I'm going to say if he's a 1st round pick, they've won a title. I think if he's a 2nd round pick, it says he had a nice year. I don't know if he's an NFL quarterback or not. I just haven't, I know what he's done. at Kansas State, and I know what we saw just in small drips and drabs in the spring, only the 3 days that we got to watch practice and in the spring game. So it's kind of hard to make a huge, for me to have a thick dossier on everything that Howard can do. Tony, you could probably speak to this a little bit more, since I think you did an edit of a lot of his better plays from Kansas State in his time there. And there's plenty of video out there. I mean, he's played 2 full years worth of games over his 3 years, there. I don't know, just what's your thought? I'll throw that out to you. Just where do you put him? Do you think this is a guy that could be a career NFL backup and/or maybe be a borderline starter in the NFL? He doesn't strike me as a guy like Joe Burrow who's just going to walk right into the NFL and start, but he's got the build, he's got the size, he's got the movability and the mobility. I think that's a better word for it, mobility, to move around in the pocket and keep plays alive. Do you think he has any upside as an NFL player?
You look at the label of Kansas State quarterback is like, that's as I like to say, it's like an NPC. That's a non-playable character in college football. It's like, yeah, it's fine, but it's a background type of thing. Skylar Thompson was a 7th round pick, former Kansas State quarterback. So, like, you look at him, and the thing that you have to keep in mind is the best weapon he had as last year was his tight end, Ben Sinnott, who was really good. I think he ended up being a 2nd round pick. And you watch Will Howard, the games, and you just see this number 34 tight end keep popping out. But he's going to have so much more to work with at Ohio State. But I watched all of those games. I cut up all of those clips, and I still don't know how consistent of a downfield thrower he is, because that's not really Kansas State's offense. They do a lot of short stuff, and they'll still do stuff like that. But you've got Ohio State receivers. You're going to be trying to stretch the field. I mean, that's something that they did really, really well with C.J. Stroud. This isn't going to be C.J. Stroud, but where does he need to be drafted for Ohio State to win a title? Stetson Bennett was a 4th round pick. I think if you've got a guy that is first 2 days, or even 4th round is the 3rd day, but if you've got a guy that the NFL feels can play in the NFL, that should be good enough for everything else that Ohio State has. Like, Stetson Bennett was good enough for Georgia, but also by the end, Stetson Bennett was really freaking good and tough to stop. And the reason that Georgia won the national title, because it wasn't Georgia's defense, it was Stetson Bennett, and at least that second one. So I don't know what he's going to be in Will Howard, because you see all of these different things, but he started games in all 4 years of his career, so he's got a ton of experience, but I just don't know how consistent he can be. And he's going to have everything available to him at Ohio State, so you would think he's going to be able to put his best foot out there. But I don't know why we're talking about this when Devin Brown is going to win the starting job.
Okay. You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah.
Or maybe you heard it somewhere else first, but you got it confirmed by Tony. This is where it really counts. Okay. My first look at Will Howard was a couple years ago, and I just looked at the numbers just to confirm what I was thinking. What I remembered watching was that I see him enter the game against TCU 2 years ago. That would have been, yes, the TCU big run to the national championship game season. Mm-hmm. He steps in for Adrian Martinez, and it was like the pass game light went on. You go from Adrian Martinez, they're running around, they're inept, they're turning the ball over. Will Howard comes in, and I'm like, oh, this guy can play. He's good. And then he carries it on against Oklahoma State the next week, throws 4 touchdowns. He has this really nice year. Of course, they win the Big 12 championship game. And at the time, if you would have asked me the day before Will Howard signed with Ohio State, I was looking at Will Howard through the Kansas State prism of, as a Kansas State quarterback, boy, I'm impressed with him. I really like him. He's a good quarterback. As soon as he signed with Ohio State, and I got to thank Tony to a certain extent with this, because even though I watched him play quite a bit of football, I watched Tony's cut downs, took in some of those notes, started to look at with a more, keener eye, more critical eye, and thought, is he an Ohio State quarterback though? I was impressed as a Kansas State quarterback, but as an Ohio State quarterback, I'm not so impressed.
Was JT Barrett a Kansas State quarterback?
Yes.
So
Yes, he was. Is Will Howard going to be asked to do what Kyle McCord did for 10 games of the season, and for 2 games of the season, is he going to be JT Barrett-esque? Like, whatever it takes. We really can't run these. Well, even though we got Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins, we can't move the Michigan line in a traditional sense. So we add Howard to the mix, and we can create some things. And we're going to run him 17 times.
yeah, I mean, I like that idea. As Chip Kelly said, they want their quarterbacks to be able to they want their quarterbacks to be able to move. They don't want running backs that can throw. They're not going to run them 20 times. But when you need it, it's good to have a guy that can go get it. And I would be shocked if there isn't a game with a starting quarterback for Ohio State who has 10 carries in a game, just because they'll be running the read option. And if the defense wants the running back or they want the quarterback to run the ball, they can dictate that. So, and there will be times where you'd rather have Will Howard running the ball than Quinshon Judkins or Travion Henderson if you're the defense. So you take the running back out and you hope you've got somebody on the other side that can take out the quarterback when he keeps it.